Hello, everyone. Thank you. No one ever applauds me, so that's quite delightful. And now I will sing. Thanks all for being here tonight. It's so great to see so many people out here tonight. We are, of course, here to celebrate the launch of Founding Folks, an oral history of the Winnipeg Folk Festival. We'll be hearing from its author, David Nikkel, in just a little while, and our host, David Knipe. We'll also be hearing, of course, from Big Dave McLean, who is here to serenade you throughout the evening. This all makes me keenly aware I'm the least interesting person that's going to be up here, so I'm going to get through our opening announcements very quickly. But before we begin, I would, of course, like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is here in Treaty 1 territory, and that's the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Innuit, Anishinaabe, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. In addition, McNally Robinson Booksellers itself rests on the land once occupied by the Métis community of Roostertown. So, this event will, of course, feature some musical performances and a conversation. There will also be a time for you folks to ask questions, so please allow those to percolate in your brain over the course of the evening. When it comes time for the Q&A, I'll approach you with this microphone in a non-threatening manner for the benefit of those watching at home, and then we'll be able to put your questions to the author himself. Now, I have the pleasure of introducing all of tonight's participants, one more thing. The only thing I'll put in your brain right now is that just at the close of the event, we'll ask you all to remain in your seats just for one moment, just so we can safely transport Kevin over to the signing table by the cash desk. I'll have some scintillating details about signing procedure for you at the end of the event, so stay tuned for that. But now, your host, to my left, David Knipe, is a film programmer, arts administrator, and bookseller with 10 years of experience working for film festivals and cinemas such as the Dave Barber Cinematheque, Hot Docs, and the Gimli International Film Festival. To his left is author Kevin Nikkel, an independent filmmaker and educator based in Winnipeg. He is a longtime member of the Winnipeg Film Group. He co-directed the documentary Tales from the Winnipeg Film Group with Dave Barber in 2007, and authored Establishing Shots, an oral history of the Winnipeg Film Group in 2023. Our special guest, who will magically appear at that chair in just a little bit, is of course Winnipeg-based guitarist, harmonica player, songsmith, Big Dave McLean. The one and only, a highly acclaimed Canadian roots and blues artist who was appointed to the Order of Canada in 2019. And here to offer a few words of introduction before the evening fully gets underway, we have a very special guest, appropriately a representative of the Winnipeg Folk Festival. Valerie Shantz is the executive director of the Winnipeg Folk Festival. She attended the very first festival in 1974 as a young child, so young she does not actually remember anything from it, and was a dedicated attendee until starting in her role as executive director in early 2024. Please give her a raucous round of applause.
I didn't know there would be so many safety warnings at a book launch. This is good to know. It is so great to see you all and to recognize so many faces actually tonight. I wasn't sure that would necessarily be the case, but it's lovely to see you all. I'm here to congratulate Kevin and on this amazing work that he's produced and lovingly put together. It is so important for us to know our history and to understand how we were founded and to hear those voices come alive in such a detailed way. And we're just really pleased as Winnipeg Folk Festival that this project is happening to come out as we celebrate our 50th, in less than a month. Let's not count any days. Yeah. And look what they kicked off, those darn founders. See Ava in the back is one of them. I'm currently in a hiring process where we're hiring a new volunteer resource manager. And one of the questions that I ask all of them is, so if you had to explain the Winnipeg Folk Festival to somebody who didn't know it, how would you describe it? And to a person, they all say something along the lines of, well, of course I like the music, but it's the people. It's so much more than just a music event. It's a community gathering. It is my home, et cetera, et cetera. And I cannot think of another event in our city or in my life that holds that place for people. And tonight is the evidence of that as well. So I'm just so appreciative of this project and the film that's coming out, that's going to be launching later this week. And although we have not been, you know, these are artistic projects by other people who have been involved. We're just so glad to be standing aside and helping to promote that work. We are hitting our 50th. For those of you counting and trying to figure out why, it has something to do with the pandemic. Yes, our first festival was in '74, but we want to celebrate the number of festivals that we actually are presenting, and that happens really soon. And this project is just timed so beautifully for us to be able to look back while we look forward as well. And now, without further ado, Big Dave McLean.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, take part of this. I also owe so much to the Winnipeg Folk Festival. It was kind of like the school I went to every summer. Back in the early days, they had a lot of blues players coming in, a lot of people that I looked up to. And it was so nice, you know, 'cause I used to listen to their records, and then next thing I'm sitting on right beside them on stage. Smell the sweat under their armpits. It was beautiful. Anyway, I should take up too much time. One of my favorite guys was the late great Muddy Waters, and I had the pleasure of doing some shows with him back in the late '70s and very early '80s. He left a big mark on me. And this is one of my favorite Muddy Waters tunes. I think he wrote it in 1938 and recorded it in '42. It's called Feel Like Going Home. Oh yeah. Late over the evening, boys, I feel like blowing my horn. When I woke up this morning, all I had was gone. I sat down. Late over the evening, hey, how I feel like blowing my horn. I woke up this morning, all I had was gone. Minutes seem like hours, how the hours, how they seem like days. Gotta find my baby, stop her low down streaking ways. Minutes seem like hours, hey, how the hours seem like days. Gotta find my baby, stop her low down sneaking ways. I had the blues when I got up, man. Had the blues when I got up, yeah. Brooks down to the ocean, ocean out to the sea. Gotta find my baby before somebody sure, yeah, they're sure gonna bury me. Brooks down to the ocean, hey, how the ocean out to the sea. I gotta find my baby. Somebody's sure gonna bury me 6 feet in the cold ground. Late over in the evening, boys, I feel like blowing my horn. When I woke up this morning, all I had, yeah, all I had was gone. Late over the evening, hey, how it feels like blowing my horn. I woke up this morning, yeah, all I had was gone. That's the blues when I go.
So now I guess it's my turn, and I want to say a big thank you to everyone for coming. Thank you for McNally for hosting, and I wish I could, take the chairs away and just let Big Dave play a couple more songs, because I think he's way more entertaining than what I'm going to be doing. But yeah, we're here to celebrate Folk Festival, and I am just very pleased to launch this book, a book that is a collaborative effort. Has my name on the cover, but it is packed full of just fantastic people who contributed their voices and their stories. Super pleased to share this with you and share the credit with a lot of the people in this room. John Prentice over here is a big part of this as well. So I just want to do that as well. And the team at U of M Press as well. I just want to say a big thank you to Barbara and Sarah, and who else is here? Hands up from U of M Press, waving. Some people around, but they're just a dynamic, fantastic group of people as well. Valerie, thank you for the Folk Festival's contribution, and also want to say, really this project really wouldn't have happened without the involvement of the Winnipeg Film Group as well, and you'll hear a bit more about their involvement, but they need to be acknowledged as well. I'm going to read a little bit. You should thank them. And Dave Barber in particular, the late Dave Barber was integral to all of this, but you'll hear more. I think maybe that'll be enough for thanks. Besides, thank you to my family as well. they're here, and my parents are here, and some of my aunts and uncles are here too, which is super awesome. Let me read a little bit, and then we'll get on with some discussion with Dave Knipe and some Q&A, and then hopefully you have some comments or questions, or you can help set some of the records straight, because after all, this is an oral history, and it's the voices that help tell that story. So I'm going to read a little bit from the opening preface of the book, and to give you a bit of a window into my thinking. The idea for a project on the Winnipeg Folk Festival started while Dave Barber and I were finishing our documentary Tales from the Winnipeg Film Group. Dave dragged a dusty box of Super 8mm film over to my studio, 4 hours of footage shot during the 1975 Winnipeg Folk Festival. He insisted that it should comprise our next project. The cache of footage was from an abandoned documentary by members of the Winnipeg Film Group. It was a gem of a cinematic time capsule. We reached out to John Prentice, longtime folk festival volunteer and host of the folk radio program Planet Mainstage on UMFM. John had been the editor of the Stall documentary back in '75, and he was keen to help. We agreed to start interviews for our own documentary on the beginnings of the Winnipeg Folk Festival. Mitch Podolak, the driving force behind the festival, was at the top of our list, particularly because of his declining health. The interviews took place between 2018 and 2022. As I had done with our previous documentary on the Winnipeg Film Group and subsequent book, Establishing Shots, I suggested we approach these interviews with a similar posture, using semi-structured informal interviews as a means of gaining a sense of both the personal and the collective. The strategic list of interviewees was organic, not based on a master yearbook, but dependent on the people that we could find or people who were coming through Winnipeg. Later, it became who was available between waves of the COVID-19 pandemic. As the pandemic lockdown eased, I was optimistic that we could resume our monthly interviews, only to be shocked by the sudden illness and passing of Dave Barber. John Prentice's deep connections with the folk festival and folk music community were essential to keeping this project alive. I could not have gotten this far without his generous support. The purpose of this oral history project is both celebratory, coinciding with the 50th anniversary of the festival, and exploratory, to contribute to the primary source knowledge of the Winnipeg Folk Festival and the broader understanding of culture on the prairies. In some ways, this adds to the mythologizing of Winnipeg cultural icons like Mitch Podolak. In other ways, it poses questions about the origin of the festival and the role Winnipeg played in creating the circumstances for the festival's flourishing. For each in-depth interview, I tried to allow part of the conversation to be about context, to hear from individuals placing themselves in the story of folk music while they became associated with the Winnipeg Folk Festival. While the book presents a collection of interviews, it's worth noting also that it's meant to depict the process and play of researcher, interviewee, and interviewers. Other oral historians mute evidence of the process as they disseminate their findings as prose. I've included myself as the interviewer and other key collaborators involved in the process, Dave Barber and John Prentice, to present this as a lively exchange, or perhaps even a jam, like on a festival workshop stage, in pursuit of memories and history. One of the traditions that is discussed in the interviews that follows is Fence Day at the Folk Festival, when volunteers begin the process of encircling the grounds of Birds Hill Park as an act of demarcation. Inside this fence is the Folk Festival, and outside is not. There is something satisfying to approach a topic, an organization, or an event like the Winnipeg Folk Festival and try to contain it, to understand it, and to say, this is the thing that we love. I'm conscious of the banging of drums around authenticity of what is folk, who should be included as the real thing and who does not belong. Personally, I fit in here somewhere as a fan of folk music and as an appreciator of the Winnipeg Folk Festival and the grand vision enacted by Mitch Podolak. As I found myself more deeply involved in the production of our documentary When We Became Folk Fest, I realized that I could bring my skills as an interviewer to document accounts of contributors to this such a unique event evolving in the 70s and early 80s at Bruce Park. Regardless of whether they were still inside the fence or outside, the people we sat down to interview for this project were consistently friendly and welcoming at the thought of getting the memories down on record. For the folks who sat to answer questions, I thank them. For the many others who would have if we would have found them, I hope they will enjoy this book. I readily admit that there are plenty more people, particularly the audience members, who also have stories to tell. I hope this book inspires more sharing and enjoyment of their own Folk Fest memories. There are only so many pages allowed in a book like this. Regardless, this gets a part of the story down. Others can capture other aspects in greater clarity or academic rigor. In the end, this is just a start, one contribution to a much larger oral history of the Winnipeg Folk Festival.
Oh, that was great. We'll get into the conversation right away, but I think none of us have had enough of hearing Big Dave yet. So Dave, do you mind giving us another song? We'd be honored. Thank you.
This has been my favorite song to play. I've been playing it for the whole time. I think I played it in 1975 at the festival. I think I was in on that one. Now Al Simmons and a bunch of other folks. The song was written in 1927 by a couple of brothers out of Atlanta, Georgia, named Barbecue Bob and Laughin' Charlie. Oh, excuse me, I gotta do this, pardon me. That's horrible.
It is a very old guitar from what I learned in the book. Is that correct?
Yeah, this is 1932 National Steel. Original strings. Okay, we're going now. That's it, Dave. Nobody knows Atlanta like I do. Nobody knows Atlanta like I do. The reason I'm known for travel through and through If you got a good woman, well, a lesson I'll give to you. You got a good woman, well, a lesson I'll give to you. Don't take it to Atlanta. Man, take away from me. They're taking my woman and they cut me to the bone. Could be bad, it could be too good. They're taking my woman and they cut me to the bone. That's the reason why every cry and moan. Can't you hear the depot whistle blow? Can't you hear that depot whistle blow? It blows just like never been blown before. Blow my whistle blow. Nobody knows Atlanta like I do. Nobody knows Atlanta like I do. The piece of my nose travel through and through.
I think I recognize that socket slide as well from the book. Is that correct?
What's that?
That socket slide
Oh, you bet, man.
mentioned in the book as well?
11/16, deep socket, craftsman. You gotta get the craftsman because they make the deep socket. All the other ones have a rib in the middle and you only go that far.
That's the secret to good blues, right?
I've had this I've never broke one. It's a twofer. It's fix your spark plugs, fix your figure.
Well, thank you all so much for being with us here tonight. It's a really, truly special moment. I'm honored to be a part of helping to launch this incredible piece of Winnipeg history and community together with you all. First off, congratulations, Kevin. What an incredible job you've done. Well, first I should say I'm a bit disappointed that nobody came early to put down tarps to save their spots. So, are we really dealing with folkies here? I don't know. But in all seriousness, Kevin, I love your preface and how it just really lays the groundwork and your intentions for what you're trying to do with this oral history. And I love how you talk about wanting to situate yourself as the interviewer in the process and lay bare that process. And it's it's such a heavy legacy that you're dealing with and you're shepherding here. It's a very treasured legacy. And I'm curious to know your perspective and your feelings, especially when you were doing these interviews. You know, what was going through your mind? How are you feeling? How do you feel now?
Starting with the hard question right
Is
off
that
the
the hard
top, eh? Well, I mean, it has to be said right from the beginning that this project was started with my collaborator, Dave Barber. And we had enjoyed the previous project and we began this one and then brought John on board, of course, too. But with the loss of Dave, like this, as you know, he was our dear friend and so connected to the film community and so connected to the story of the Folk Fest because he had volunteered and done quite a bit of work in the early years. And so on the one hand, I was excited at the very beginning to be collaborating with Dave because I just like doing things with Dave. And I had learned from that previous project that I don't have to do everything by myself. It's actually kind of handy and it's quite enjoyable to collaborate with other people. And so now, since then, I've been constantly thinking about who can I work with and expanding my working relationship with other people for that very reason. But then to have that my collaborator disappear was devastating, and it took a while to try and figure out, okay, well, can this continue? Yes, it should. How? And then talking with John, how can we keep the documentary going? And then the book was something that I'd always wanted to do because the first book was such a fun thing to do. And so I'm not sure if I'm answering directly, but it's the answer is coming from some emotions, and it was something that was heavy, but also relieving in some ways to know, yeah, we're going to finish this and we're going to do this as a legacy, not just for the festival, but also for Dave, my dear friend. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, in addition to losing Dave, in the process of making the book, we also lost Mitch.
Yeah.
And obviously, rightly so, Mitch's presence looms large over the book and really anchors the book. You know, everything all roads kind of lead back to Mitch.
Yeah.
And one thing I was really surprised myself to learn about the festival in the early days reading through the book was the deeply held political and philosophical underpinnings and intentions that Mitch set out.
Yeah.
But it seems to constantly clash and contradict with his entrepreneurial, almost capitalistic venturism, you know, how he's able to get the money to make the thing, right?
Yeah, the hustle. Yeah, I think we're very quickly going to have to turn this over to the audience because there's some experts in the crowd, and I'm thinking of somebody directly over here, but there's other experts all over the room that could answer this with much more authoritative answers. But that's part of the beauty of this book is that we were able to get these stories. It's a collection of interviews, right? And Ava is in, and Mitch, you know, I was so happy that we got the interview with Mitch before he passed away. And that was the first one that really began things. We wanted to hustle to get that one ready or recorded. But you're absolutely right. As I interviewed people and as I processed and listened to those recordings, I had the privilege of I want to use the old metaphor of loading software. You're reloading some Mitch into my thought thinking process and his ability to hustle and have this vision, this a grand vision. Like how often do we have a grand vision? And I think he very much did. And that one of the things that I loved about this process of working with interviews is that ability to have the conversation, record it, but then spend time typing it up and then, you know, fixing it so that it's a bit tighter, maybe a bit shorter. And Mitch, especially David Amram, if I could jump in and say, my conversation with David Amram was just such a treat. In fact, I had an email from him. He's like 95, and he sent me this ridiculously long email, like in like large font, almost as if it's all caps, but he's just so excited. And if you ever saw David Amram concert, you know the kind of person he was. His philosophy of life too, I was just so privileged to be able to receive and try to partake of, if I could use that kind of a illustration.
Yeah, I mean, the incredible thing is that there's so many through lines and similarities in how your interviewees are reflecting on and thinking about and feeling about the early days of the festival. So it seems like that kind of foundation, that spiritual, political, philosophical foundation is still there all these years later.
Sure, yeah, I think it seems very much that there's I don't know if we probably shouldn't say religious, but it's weird like that, but it's certainly emotional, right? Like certainly an emotional thing and spiritual even, like there's something deep that's connected to what people feel about community and an event that brings people together to share an experience.
Absolutely. So you interviewed a lot of incredible people from really around the world, you know, a lot of luminaries in the folk world, not just here in Winnipeg, but elsewhere. I'm curious, and kind of question that has to be asked, it's a difficult one, but was there anybody that you wanted to interview but maybe weren't able to for various reasons? Any white whales left out there?
I don't know, John, do you think? The one person that comes to mind is Bruce Cockburn, but I talked with Bruce is in the book, and Bruce is in the book because of John, because John on his radio program interviewed Bruce Cockburn. Do you remember the year? I can't remember off the top of my head, but he was coming for the festival and you had him on your show and did a nice little interview with him. And so when I got the recording off John, I thought, you know, it's really hard to get through to Bruce to try and line up. When Bruce came just last year or the year before and did his show at the Burton Cummings. I don't know if some of you guys were probably there. It was a great show. I had tried to line up an interview with Bruce Cockburn when he came to town, and I was like, no, he didn't say it, but his manager said, no, he's far too busy. He's not. But then because John had done the interview, I went back to the manager and said, hey, can I just use this? I showed him the transcript and said, can I include Bruce in the book with this interview that John has done? Because it seems like this is going to be way easier than for us to try and line up a schedule with one of my heroes. And that worked, you know, and they said yes, and John was open to letting it be in the books.
Another important person is Harry Payne.
Harry Payne.
He had passed away by the time.
Yeah, so Harry is also in the book, right? And the lucky thing again with this one was Dodie Graham McKay was doing a documentary about Harry Payne. I don't know if you guys ever saw that documentary a couple years back for MTS TV. And so with that production, she interviewed Harry a number of times for that documentary. And so I contacted them and said, hey, do you still have the hard drive of those interviews? Can I use them? And they were like, sure, totally. And so that was the way that we could include Harry in our documentary, which hopefully you'll come and see on the weekend, and also include in the book because that was recorded previously.
It really took so many different folks to get this book out to the world. Really just an incredible piece of collective action from all of you. One of those folks that I think we should absolutely give a shout out to, thinking about, you know, this is an oral history, but it's certainly kind of undergirded by lots of materiality. And of course, that's David Landy's photo archive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Can you imagine what
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen it, but like most of the book is Landy photos, and the Provincial Archives of Manitoba, super generous. They are super fantastic, and of course the Folk Festival. Folk Festival is super kind in letting us use photos from their archive and those Landy pictures. If you ever saw the Turnstone book, the Folk Festival book from back in the day, I found that book and I was just looking through these images and thinking, where can I get these pictures? And so we've extended the life of some of those photos again because they're so good.
Yeah, they look incredible. I do want to open it up to the audience. I have another question, but I think I'll save it to the end. That's assuming nobody else asks it, which it's a good chance of. But let's open it up to you folks. I'm sure you have burning questions. If you want to throw up your hand, John will come around with a mic.
Oh dear, I have to start. No, I just wanted, I haven't looked at the book at all, so I was wondering if you managed to get Jim Post, because he was fairly significant for several years and he was insane. So, big personality.
No, unfortunately, we weren't able to get you. No, and that's gonna be, unfortunately, we're gonna have to say,
Too
no,
late now.
didn't get, no, sorry.
Yeah,
It's like, there's just too many people.
I
and
know, but he hosted for several years when he was here. How many years, Ava? In a row? I don't know. Lots.
Many years.
Yeah, yeah. That was important. Okay, just pass this.
Other questions from the audience?
I have something to say.
Yeah, please.
This is a bit of history about the very beginning of the folk festival. It became available in 1974, and when Mitch heard about it, he said to me, we're standing around in my parents' living room. He said, we should make a folk festival, to which I replied, what is a folk festival? So we went to Mariposa and I figured out what a folk festival was. And the thing about Mitch, what his philosophy was about it was to have some big name draws like Bruce Cockburn to bring people out. And the first festival, by the way, was free. But it was also a place to showcase new up and coming artists who didn't have an audience yet, but who he gave them the opportunity to build an audience. That's it.
At the back there.
First, thanks for not making us all sit on the floor with our creaky joints. But yeah, it's just my memory. I was a grunt on the first festival, and but the thing that always has stuck in my mind from that festival, probably more than anything else, was some of the spontaneous social gatherings in hotel rooms or in people's houses and there are these professional musicians that I only knew as gods on stage, and they just sat around with me and other people like me and traded songs, literally traded songs. Like it wasn't them singing to us. If one of us sang a song that they didn't know, they'd stop us and say, hey, teach me that song. And and then they'd start picking the chords, and it was, that's what people mean, I think, when they talk about the spirit and the I don't know what, the heart or whatever you want to call it of the folk festival, is that kind of interaction with these people, musicians, professionals, but they're real people, they're nice people. And anyways, I just.
Yeah, I think you summarized our experience, like John and I and Dave, like when we would go to do an interview, it was that sharing, very much like that, of asking questions and then folks sharing stories and sometimes sharing music, right? Maybe a guitar would get pulled out, but certainly sharing the stories. And I'm just happy that they got into the book.
I think there was another question from the back.
I'm just reminiscing about my very first wandering in happening to Land of Estate with Connie Caldor, Marilyn Lerner, the Weird Sisters, Ani DeFranco, and a vegetarian hot dog. And I thought, okay, so who are the women in the book? I'm eager to read about.
Yeah, Kathy Fink is going to be one that I'm going to put out there that I was super excited to interview, and Mary Faith Rhodes just had an email from her. She is coming this weekend to see the film on Friday, coming from Pennsylvania. I'm super pumped and honored that she's coming all the way. So there's a couple of performers and then a lot of volunteers as well, right? And like I said in the preface, like, man, I wish I wish there could be more, really conscious of trying to include the voices and diversity. But then it was also a matter of, I'm thinking about Barbara over in the corner, of how big can this book be? And I'm already feeling guilty that it's as big as it is. So conscious of who's available, who can we go and see? And I drove down to Pennsylvania and also to Washington to interview Kathy Fink, right? So, trying to get people, but then also realizing that time is running out, the 50th anniversary is coming up, got to wrap this up, so.
Well, I think that's an interesting point. Oral histories and no history are ever complete. And this is obviously very much a still vibrant living history. So I'm curious from your perspective, what comes next? I'm sure the work isn't done and there's more that you'd like to explore. And from the Folk Fest's end, 50th now, looking back, but also looking forward, I'm sure there's greater opportunity for more of this history to be unearthed and shared.
Yeah. Well, I think from the Folk Fest point of view, we talked to John later about the legacy crew that's been working with your team about how can we capture as much while we're all celebrating and reminiscing about the things that we mentioned, right? Those festivals or those shows that we saw. Annie DeFranco's coming again this year, right? I'm totally pumped to see her. Right, so there's lots of more things that are, it's not my thing, but it's the festival that's really gathering the stuff and hopefully documenting it. Val, do you want to speak to that?
I just want to tell everybody about a project that's going on in connection to our 50th, which is not the same as this work, but hopefully kind of carries on some of the spirit of it. So if you go to our website right now, and there's a little button that says 50 years of folk. And she's like, really, you can remember the name of this thing? And it does an overview of each decade of the festival. Tells you all the performers that were there, highlights a bunch of photos from each decade, gives you sort of key information about the decade so you can see how the festival has changed over time from the founding. And we've been doing a lot of collection of stories ourselves about people's memories of the festival. And I can't believe I'm gonna say this out loud because it's a secret, but oh well. Every night of the main stage this year, we're gonna start with a little 5-minute video full of people telling their memories of the folk festival. So I hope that we are operating in the spirit of wanting to kind of collect those stories and build on some of the great work that's happened with this book.
Another question.
Oh,
yeah, go ahead.
Say something. You know, Mike. Oh, sorry.
I wanted to say, I want people to know what a miracle this film is. The last thing I was expecting in 2017 was a phone call out of the blue from Dave Barber saying, do you know anything about this box of film that I've just found upstairs in the back room? He said, I think you might know something about it. And honest, like, that was in the late 70s. It was virtually 40 years later. I had worked on this film as the person who got the privilege, I guess, to post it. I didn't work on the shooting of it, but the National Film Board had just come to Winnipeg. They were on St. James Street and they offered us space. So I was in there when I could, logging 5 hours of Super 8 film with the audio on separate reels and trying to make it something. The National Film Board in Montreal actually thought this was the latest big thing, Super 8. And they sent some guys down to watch me working for a while, actually. But the thing that saved this film is actually technology, of course, because once you can just dump the audio and the film onto the digital, then it came to life again. So when Dave and Kevin brought me in, it was like I had an albatross off my back because this work print had been in my basement. Where we took it was, I took it actually as far as a rough cut. And Jerry Krepkewicz, who was the, before Michael Scott, person who was the first director of the film board in Winnipeg, was very helpful. He came and looked at the 40-minute film that I put together and said, it's too long, gotta shorten it down another 10 minutes or something. So, and then the frustration was that the equipment we were using was a dual system, reel-to-reel and film running together. And of course, you know the thing where you stop the film and the film melts as you're looking at it. So a few of those incidents. But it was, just to say, there was some use made out of this film. Was that Mitch, and I first met Mitch, David, and Laura, she won't remember, came to the film board, and we wanted to look at this footage. And it was bumped up to 16 mil, and CBC made it into something for commercials and that sort of thing. However, as I said, it's a miracle. 40 years later, on Friday, you guys are going to get to see the product. I'm so proud to be been a part of it, working with Kevin, who's brilliant, and the editing. You must mention Annie and other people who worked on putting it together digitally, basically. And the film actually had so much potential all the way along. David Amram, that's what I was going to mention. David Amram is my focus for this, because David Amram, when he did the interview with us on camera at the first shooting of this, was 45 years old. 40 years later, we talked to him. He's 90. 45 years later, actually, 90 years old, and he hasn't lost a beat. And we have the original interview we did with him. We haven't mentioned Val Klassen and Bonnie von Helmet, who were the interviewers for this. And you know, the interview with David Amram is there, and we talked to him again, and you see this passage of time, and the message is still the same, that, you know, folk music is here to stay. And this is what's going to happen for the next 50 years in Birds Hill Park in Winnipeg. Thank you. Kind of say a few words.
What a treasure that footage is, and as John mentioned, the film will be filmed when we became Folk Fest, which is the result of that incredible footage that was put together by Kevin and Andy, restored all these years later to incredible glory. It's a wonderful film. I've seen it myself. Is opening this Friday at Cinematheque, the Dave Barber Cinematheque. The first screening is sold out on Friday. So if you don't have a ticket for that one, there are a couple more screenings throughout the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. It's also going to be playing at the Gimli International Film Festival, we can announce now, in July on the 26th, I believe. And there will be a special workshop, kind of a behind the scenes talk with Kevin and Andy about that entire technological process, as John was alluding to. I think we're just about to wrap up. Before we hear one final song from Big Dave and move over to the signing, I did want to ask one final question, Kevin. In the book, you yourself keep bringing up this question to all your interviewers: why Winnipeg? And I just want to read off some of the kind of truncated responses that we get as to why something like the Winnipeg Folk Fest could happen in Winnipeg. What is so unique about Winnipeg to be fertile ground for it? And you know, they range from, it was because Mitch chose to do it here. There was ample government funding and support. There were robust, well-established, active and interconnected immigrant communities already doing their own programming and celebrations. Collective community-based programming was already a thing here in Winnipeg. There was the culture for it. Birds Hill Park was such a unique and perfect setting, or it was something in the soil. But I'm curious, after hearing everyone else's answers, what would you answer?
Yeah, my answer would be a different metaphor, not the soil, but thinking about the size of the pond, right? And I just think that we have such a benefit from having Winnipeg being so nice and small that a filmmaker, you know, can meet up with John and this box of film reels can surface. Whereas in bigger cities, there's just way too many people, I think. That this kind of project, the book and also the film, it's just too hard to pull that off. And also the folk festival is approachable, that we can, you know, that we can approach the festival and say, hey, can we look in your basement? You know, and you said yes, you took us down and looked into those bins and found reels. And we said, can we take these audio reels? And, oh, sure, okay. And we did, and Andy could save them, rescue, and we started to dig into them. And that's because I think it's the size of the pond that makes these things happen.
Well said. Thanks, Kevin. Thank you all so much. Good night, everybody.
Blue skies are falling, the Lord won't be long for day. I said that big stars are falling, won't take long for day. I dreamt on my pillow, down where my baby used to lay. Now what you want with a rooster, fool won't crow for days. What you want with a rooster, fool won't crow for days. What you want with a woman, have to have her own way. I know my bulldog, baby, when I hear him bark. I know my bulldog, when I hear him bark. As I know my woman, as I feel her in the dark. I went to the mountain, far as I could see. I went to the mountain, far as I could see. Some other man took my baby. These lonesome blues took me. Blue skies are falling, Lord won't be long for day. Big stars are falling, Mama take long for day. Maybe the sunshine drive my blues away.
I suppose I have the unenviable task of following all of that, so huge thanks, Big Dave, to Kevin, David, thank you all for being, and thank you all for being here tonight. It's a really spectacular evening of story and song, which seems entirely appropriate given the subject matter. And now we're going to move along to signing to keep the alliterative line going. So just a few quick notes. We will be transporting Kevin over to the table just beside the cash desk, and then you can all line up and get your book signed. Please feel free to get your book signed before paying for it. Just please do pay for the book before you leave, as we are apparently a shamelessly capitalist enterprise here at the store. We're so very grateful to the University of Manitoba Press for publishing this incredibly comprehensive book and for making this evening a possibility as well. Were it not for Sarah wrangling all the details, this would have all crumbled apart. So we're so very grateful to them. And of course, we're enormously grateful to all of you for being here tonight as well. If there's one thing the Folk Festival is about, it's community. And it's so wonderful to have you physically here today and watching electronically for the people joining us on the internet. So please join me in giving one final round of applause to David Knipe, Kevin Nikkel, Big Dave McLean. Thank you all for the wonderful.